Usually I wear this hat when someone's mad at someone. But this might be the first instance that I don't wear it. I'm just wearing it because it says don't bother me, I'm crabby. There's a crab, and it's a corny joke. And you know where corn comes from? That's right, Iowa. NASCAR had its first ever race at Iowa Speedway. Ryan Blaney was your winner. He really dominated this night race, and for the first time in his career, he led over 200 laps in a single race. Prior to tonight, he had only led 144 laps in the season, but a huge night for Ryan Blaney. Had 80 family members in the crowd. It's a lot of family members. I think there might have been some friends in there maybe, but anyways, we're getting distracted. Ryan Blaney, as I said, dominated this race. Won stage one, finished, I want to say second in stage two? No, finished fourth in stage two, but he makes up for the heartbreak just a couple of weeks ago at Gateway. Of course, if you remember at Gateway, Ryan Blaney coming to the white flag, runs out of gas when it wasn't even a concern. His teammate ended up picking up the win, but obviously Ryan Blaney himself, the defending Cup Series champion, wants to win a race, wants to win multiple races, wants to become the first ever back-to-back champion in the elimination format. And Ryan Blaney took a big step forward. Ryan Blaney's had some good runs this year, but Team Penske has not been to the Team Penske standard this year. They have not won a lot of races. This is only their second race of the win of the year. But on the flip side of that, they've won 2 out of the last 3. They won at Gateway with Austin Cindric, and they won tonight with Ryan Blaney at Iowa. So Team Penske, Ford as a whole, starting to find their step, starting to find more speed. But Ryan Blaney, as I said, big win for him tonight at Iowa. It was the first Cup Series race at Iowa. So what do we think of this race? I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this race. Let me know in the comments as always. But I thought it was a pretty good race, actually. I had really low expectations for this race in the early part of the week. Short track, next-gen car, those two have just not meshed well together. And so I thought, this race isn't going to be too great. Everyone's going to be complaining, calling for the track's head when it's not the track's fault. But then Friday happened. And Friday, there were a lot of tire issues. Everyone was talking about the tires. You couldn't go 25 laps, 20 laps without someone blowing a tire. Ty Gibbs, Austin Cindric, Christopher Bell, among multiple others, had tires go down during practice. There was some concern that, well, what if this happens on Sunday? What if they can't go 20, 25 laps without blowing tires? Is this going to be like Texas in 2022 all over again? Thankfully, it was not. But with the partial repave at the bottom of 1 and 2, the bottom of 3 and 4, it made the track unique in a sense with the different surfaces. It made it much higher speed, with more speed being able to be carried through the corners with that grip. But there was still some character, some roughness on the back stretch, the front stretch, even part of the entry and exit of the corners. So it allowed for tire wear to happen. It allowed for different strategies to happen. Ryan Blaney ran the last 88 laps on 2 right side tires. Those left sides were probably 100 laps old, I want to say. But William Byron had 4 tires and couldn't chase him down. Chase Elliott had 4 tires and couldn't chase him down. So, yeah, sure, we would have liked to see the left sides wear a little bit more, but we were able to see some movement throughout the field. We saw Kyle Larson go all the way through the field at one point in this race. We saw Ryan Blaney get trapped in traffic at times. He came back through the field. We saw guys able to make moves in traffic. We saw multiple grooves. And with the repave only being on those bottom lanes, there was a lot of concern coming into this race that there wasn't going to be multi-groove racing because you could only really run 1.5 lines, but there was side-by-side racing all night throughout the field, whether it was for the lead between Chris Buescher and Josh Berry, whether it was for 7th place, whether it was for 13th place. There was great racing throughout the field tonight, so this was one of the best short tracks that we've seen in the next-gen era. I thoroughly enjoyed this race. Some may disagree, some may agree, but in my opinion, I really like this race. So Kyle Larson, he also led a good stint of this race. We'll talk about him, but he ended up crashing out, had arguably the best car. As I said, we'll talk about him in a minute, but let's look at the results, and we'll get to Kyle Larson later. Ryan Blaney is your winner, as I said. Team Penske's second win of the year. Big night for Ryan Blaney to win at what they called one of his home tracks. I think they said his mom is from the Des Moines, Iowa area. And Ryan Blaney, not only did he win tonight, locks himself into the playoffs, 5 bonus points. He wasn't really at risk of missing the playoffs, but the win, kind of really locks you in. He won a stage tonight, so that's 6 playoff points on the night. And on top of that, he was 12th in the regular season standings entering tonight, and I'm extremely confident he will be in the top 10 as we leave Iowa, meaning he just picked up at least 7, 8, 9, maybe even 10 playoff points on the night. Obviously, that top 10, the points can fluctuate as the season goes on, but Ryan Blaney just had himself a huge night. Obviously, the best performance of the season for that team, led over 200 laps. They won a stage. They won the race itself. After the heartbreak at Gateway a couple of weeks ago, they bounce back and they come to Iowa and they dominate. The best Team Penske has looked all year has been since that North Wilkesboro All-Star race when Joey Logano dominated that. And then you go to Gateway, you win that race, lead a good amount of laps between all 3 cars. And then you come here, Iowa, a new track, a track no one's been to. We talk about how good Joey Logano is at these new racetracks and how he wins at all of them. Maybe it's a Penske thing because Ryan Blaney just added himself to the list. Ryan Blaney will forever be known as the first ever winner in the Cup Series at Iowa Speedway. Second place was William Byron. Seemed like he was going to be the guy to chase down Blaney there at the end. He had 4 tires versus Blaney's 2, but kind of just stalled out at 7/10 of a second. He was able to get within 7/10 of a second, but then fell back to 1.1, 1.2, got back with 7/10. 1.1, 1.2, 7/10. Back forth. And then when it came to the traffic, honestly, Blaney was just getting through it better. He was shucking it like a piece of corn. That was supposed to be a pun. I don't know if that sounded funny or not. If it wasn't, I'm sorry. It's Iowa corn. I'm trying to make corny jokes. Just maybe I shouldn't. But William Byron, great points night for him. Scored stage points, was in the top 5 most of the night. Great day for him, nothing to complain about. But they have been winless since Martinsville in April, which is just interesting, I guess. I mean, I'm not saying they suck or anything, obviously, but just a little bit of a winless streak here for the 24 after how well they've run the last couple of years. Third place, Chase Elliott. Another night for Chase Elliott where he runs top 5 most of the day, but just not quite that winning speed. He was competitive earlier in this race, was actually fighting Ryan Blaney and Kyle Larson for the lead at one point in this race, but as the night went on, just kind of a 3rd to 5th place car, obviously behind Byron and Blaney that entire last 88 lap run, but Chase Elliott, I think he's your points leader now in the regular season standings. Kyle Larson crashed out, Denny Hamlin had damage, and Denny Hamlin had a rough night. Elliott was only 14 points behind Larson. He was 15 or so ahead of Hamlin. I think Chase Elliott's the points leader. Only 1 win on the season, but is yet to finish worse than 19th. That's good enough to get you the points lead 17 races into the season. Chase Elliott finishes 3rd. 4th place, Christopher Bell. His long run car was insane, and this was a backup car. He crashed in practice due to a tire issue. Started at the back of the field, and he was able to make his way through the field. That last run, really every long run, Bell, whether he was 13th, 15th, 8th, he was able to make up positions. That long run speed, something in that car just clicked, and he was able to make his way up through the field. Christopher Bell with a 4th place finish. They're starting to find their stride a bit, A lot of speed at Gateway a couple of weeks ago. Obviously had that engine issue late in that one. They won the Coca-Cola 600, and now another top 5 here. The 20 team is starting to find the pep in their step, I guess, if that's one way to put it. 5th place, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won a couple of Xfinity Series races here at Iowa. Of course, the iconic clip of his engine dying off of turn 4 and Carl Edwards barreling into him because he was stuck in the oil. But Ricky Stenhouse Jr. took a couple of strategy gambles. They got a timely caution that really wasn't a caution from Daniel Hemrick hitting the wall. But Ricky Stenhouse Jr. took advantage of it. That team took advantage of it, put 2 tires on with about 88 to go, as I said, and they were able to hold in the top 5. A great run from Stenhouse to be in the top 5, to hold off some really good cars. Yes, a couple of them got by you, but Hendrick and Gibbs, you'll be fine. A 5th place finish for Stenhouse is great, especially at a track like Iowa. 6th place, Joey Logano. A lot of people, I should say, had this guy winning this race due to his history at new racetracks, but a great run for him. Was in top 5 at times tonight, was running in the top 10 the majority of the night, and ultimately finishes 6th. Josh Berry finishes 7th, led 32 laps in this race. Man, Josh Berry, he was leading this race, had a little bit over a second lead on Ryan Blaney, and a caution comes out. They pit the mixed strategy, 2 tires versus 4 tires. They restart 5th or 6th, then they kind of just end up finishing 7th. You got to wonder if they had that track position, could they have held on, or could they probably would have gotten a better finish. I don't know if they were good enough to hold off Blaney, but what could have been in a sense, but still a fantastic result for Josh Berry, fighting for his career here with Stewart-Haas Racing, shutting down. A great run from him regardless of that late race, kind of getting stuck in the traffic thing. 8th place, Alex Bowman, started in the 30s. Just unfortunate selection for qualifying, or the way the metric worked out being in Group A. He started in the 30s, ends up coming back for a top 10 finish. 9th place, Daniel Suarez. He has struggled this year outside of the Atlanta win. His last top 10, I think, was Texas, I want to say. I could be wrong on that. But Daniel Suarez was in the top 10 the majority of the day. Trackhouse showed speed with him and Chastain. Both guys did great today, but Daniel Suarez especially up in the top 5 at times, in the top 10 most of the race. A great result for Daniel Suarez. Brad Keselowski, another top 10 for him. Great run for him. 11th place, Chastain. As I said, a lot of speed from the Trackhouse guys today. 12th place, Todd Gilliland. Like Ricky Stenhouse Jr., really benefited from that caution from Daniel Hemrick. That was not really a caution. But Todd Gilliland took advantage. They played the strategy. They did everything right. They ran top 10 for a bit there. And another top 15 finish for Todd Gilliland in that Front Row Motorsports number 38 team. A great place to be. They just showed the playoff grid. Todd Gilliland was on the playoff grid. He wasn't in the playoffs, but he was in the top 20, which that is huge for Todd Gilliland. 13th, Justin Haley. Justin Haley ran top 10, if not top 10, top 15 the majority of this race. He was top 10 early on, made up 9 spots in 15 laps, and was 10th. And they had an equipment interference penalty or some sort of pit road penalty that sent them to the back, but they made their way through the field. As we talked about with Larson, some of these other guys, Justin Haley made his way up through the field, was able to actually make passes, and had top 10 speed. The scoring sheet shows 13th, but still, incredible speed from Justin Haley. Top 10s, top 15s are becoming normal for this team, becoming normal for this driver. It's impressive. Rick Ware Racing and Justin Haley, they're probably not going to win a race this year. They're probably not going to make the playoffs, but they're putting together something pretty special for a Rick Ware racing car, considering what we've seen out of them before. Top 10 at Darlington, top 10 at Gateway, almost a top 10 here at Iowa. They're starting to find something at Rick Ware Racing, and I'm not going to guarantee you a win, as I said, but they're knocking on the door of much more competitive results, much more consistently. 14th, Carson Hocevar, great race for him. Martin Truex Jr. was irrelevant tonight after announcing his retirement. Toyota as a whole, outside of Bell, just really struggled tonight. So Truex, the second highest finishing Toyota, in 15th. Noah Gragson, 16th. Bubba Wallace, 17th. 18th, Chris Buescher. Buescher had a strategy call. They led a few laps here, led 16 laps to be exact. And they were running top 5, but they were a victim of a tire failure. Hit the wall, caused a caution, and I thought they were going to be in the 20s or 30s, but ultimately they rallied back for 18th. But the way the playoffs are looking right now, the standings, you can't. Here's the thing, is that it wasn't their fault completely. Tires just were an issue tonight, but it could have been a better result. And I think Buescher will win a race, but if it does come down to points and you lose by a handful of points, this could be a place you look. I don't think it will be, but I'm overthinking it right now. 18th, Buescher. 19th, Dillon. 20th, Harrison Burton. Was up in the top 15 for a good part of the first half of this race. Showed some genuine speed. Ends up with a top 20. Really good run for Burton. 21st, Corey LaJoie. 22nd, Tyler Reddick. Got pinned a lap down when that Daniel Hemrick caution happened. Could never recover. 23rd, Michael McDowell was running top 10 late in this race when he had a tire go down with about 20 to go. Had a tire go down earlier in this race as well, so I had to overcome multiple tire failures, but ultimately 23rd could have been better for McDowell. 24th, Denny Hamlin. Oh my gosh. The worst Denny Hamlin race of the season, and that includes last week when they blew a motor on lap 2. Denny Hamlin got lapped on lap 35. Like, I'm not talking about he spun out, had damage, they had to pit for a flat. They were that slow. Denny Hamlin went from, I don't know where they started. They started, let's see here, 12th. They went from 12th to 34th in 35 laps. They were a lap down. They got pinned a lap down and had to take the wave around because there were like 5 lap cars ahead of them. Made some major adjustments, and they were still running in the 20s. But then that caution happened, as I said, with Hemrick, and they were in the top 10. They got some stage points. Momentum's going your way, baby. You got back in the top 10. You got some stage points, and you wrecked. And it wasn't any of Denny Hamlin's fault. Kyle Larson just kind of tried to take it 3 wide and, kind of failed. But ultimately, Hamlin, just a bad race. And when you're fighting for the regular season championship, you can't afford this because you look at Hamlin had a bad night. But so did Larson, and you could argue, they kind of even out. But Larson scored 19 stage points on the night. So, he beat you by a lot of stage points, and you beat him by 8, 9, maybe 10 spots. But Chase Elliott takes the points lead. So you just can't afford these nights when you're fighting for a regular season championship, and you definitely can't afford back-to-back bad results if you're fighting for a regular season championship. 25th, Ty Gibbs. 26th, John Hunter Nemechek. 27th, Ryan Preece. 28th, Chase Briscoe had top 5, top 10 speed early. Not really sure what happened there. I think they were part of the victims that got pinned a lap down by 29th place Daniel Hemrick's caution. 30th place Austin Cindric. 31st, Zane Smith. 32nd, Eric Jones. Every time they showed him on TV, he was blowing a tire. I swear he blew 3 or 4 tires tonight. 33rd, Kaz Grala. 34th, Kyle Larson. Led 80 laps in this race, won a stage, so he did get a playoff point, but he had the fastest car tonight. He was able to mow down the field, was able to pass anyone. He went an entire stint where he started last, and he made his way up to 2nd or 3rd, and then he eventually won stage 2. So Kyle Larson, they had the speed in this car to win the race, but ultimately Larson overly aggressive early in this race. Suarez got loose, clipped him, and Larson ends up wrecking out. He ends up coming back on track 40, 50 laps down, finishes in 34th. And as I said with Hamlin, when you are fighting for a regular season championship, you cannot afford these mistakes. But in Larson's case, I'm going to be a little bit harder on Larson because he's had this problem before. Kyle Larson, if you look at 2022, you look at 2023, so many instances where Kyle Larson has had race-winning speed, and even if you don't win, finish 2nd, finish 3rd, it's a good points day. You win stages and whatnot. Homestead last year, you look at that one. Texas last year, you look at that one. 2 instances that I can think of, the top of my head, I'm sure there's more that I'm forgetting about for sure, where Kyle Larson could have had a win or a 2nd or 3rd place finish, but he drives into the barrels at Homestead. He wrecks himself fighting for the lead at Texas. There are these instances when he has race-winning speed, but he takes himself out of contention. He made an overly aggressive move about the halfway point of this race, or at the beginning of stage 3, that just didn't need to be made, really. I get you want track position, you want it now, but you've got the fastest car, man. Kyle Larson's a great talent. I'm not saying he's not talented, but just he has this consistent trend and he's actually been really good about it this year at finishing races, at running well, but he has this trend when he has race-winning speed and he's not in the lead, he sometimes just destroys the car in the process, and that's ultimately what happened. And yes, I know Suarez clipped him or whatever, but Larson put Suarez in a bad spot, and that's ultimately what happened. 35th, Kyle Busch. The hits just keep on coming, man. Gateway, you wreck fighting for stage points. Sonoma, you get dumped out of a top 5 on the last lap and run out of fuel. And then this week, another top 5, top 10 race going, and something breaks on the car. And then you go and fix it, and something leaks. Something else breaks, and you finish 35th. Kyle Busch has had a real possibility of missing the playoffs. If I wasn't already concerned, the panic button has been hit. They are more than 30 points out of the playoffs right now. What is happening with this team? a year ago they won 3 races, and I know they had a rough second half of the year, but oh my goodness, this is mind-boggling. This is a 2-time Cup Series champion. This is a team that over the last 2 years, they had won 6 combined races. I'm just at a loss for words. I get they're having a rough year, but oh my goodness, this 3-week stint, it's mind-blowing how bad they've been. So Kyle Busch, 35th. It's looking like a real possibility that Kyle Busch could miss the playoffs. Obviously, a win erases everything. They could very well go on a hot streak here, but less than 10 races to go. They got to get it together. And then last, AJ Allmendinger, he blew a tire early in this race. So the first ever Cup Series race at Iowa, I would consider a good race. I would say an 8.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I'm telling you. Multi-grooved. I know Blaney led over 200 laps, and that might bore some people, but there were some great battles up front between Blaney and Larson, between Buescher and Berry, as I said earlier. So good racing overall throughout the field, multi-groove, tire wear. So let me know what you thought of this race. As I said, I really enjoyed it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one, wherever it may be. And tomorrow night, our normal time, we will do the Monday after Iowa. A lot to talk about. Don't forget, kids, punting is winning. I had to mention Iowa football in here at some point. Corey LaJoie ran the Iowa football paint scheme. I forgot. Well, not the Iowa football, the Iowa University of Iowa. I forgot to mention it. He scored stage points. Punting is winning.